Welcome into Locked On 76ers. That's Keith Pompey. I'm Marc Farzetta. We're going to talk about the 76ers connections to the NBA Finals that get underway tonight between the Thunder and the Pacers. And also, if there's a quick fix to the 76ers problems. Thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This particular episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. This is Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On 76ers once again. Marc Farzetta, Keith Pompey. Keith, you wrote a great article, Inquirer.com. You'd been telling me about it through the week. I was really looking forward to today's show because it's better to talk about the Sixers' history right now than it is to talk about what I think is going on in the present. That is up until we get to the draft and we start, hopefully building for the future. But talking about the connections that the Philadelphia 76ers have to this NBA Finals run, on the bench with the coaching staff, trainers, guys in the front office maybe, and also guys on the court with the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. First and foremost, I am excited about this finals. If it's not going to be a Sixers final, obviously, then I am excited to watch these two teams compete. We'll also give everyone our finals predictions. But Keith, walk me through it, man. There's just connection after connection after connection between the 10-9-8 76ers and these NBA finals.
Yeah, it's crazy because when you look at it, the Indiana Pacers have 4 former Sixers on the team. The Oklahoma City Thunder has 3. Now, when we talk about it, is you have 2 players, one TJ McConnell, a product of the process. You have Lloyd Pierce, who was an assistant coach during the process. You also have Tony Bradley, who came, during Doc's tenure. He was acquired for a little bit and he was traded to OKC, ironically. And then you have Michael Preston, who was the former PR guy, who was with the Sixers, I believe, from 2006 to 2017. And then when you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, one of their main reserves is a guy by the name of Isaiah Joe, who was a legend in Philadelphia for his sharpshooting for 2 years until Doc Rivers waived him. I still don't understand that one. And then you have Vince Reisman. Now, Vince Reisman is in the front office for OKC, but Vince Reisman has a hand in the draft of, Tyrese Maxey, Isaiah Joe when he drafted him, and Paul Reed, and he made some other great moves. So it makes sense for once he goes to OKC signs Isaiah Joe, right? And then there's Connor Johnson. Connor Johnson was a former Delaware Blue Coats coach, and prior to that, he spent 4 years in varying roles as a Sixers assistant. So, dude, I'm telling you, someone from the Sixers organization is going to get a ring today. Maybe 4 people, maybe 3, but people are going to get a ring.
Yeah, they're going to start their process in getting a ring with the NBA Finals kicking off tonight. I was thinking about this, and I don't include Joel Embiid because when Joel Embiid played, that was the end of the process. That was like, oh, we're going to try to win basketball games now. Yeah. Joel Embiid's healthy play. But I was thinking about it. You would always talk, or Brett Brown would always talk about the crown jewel of the process is Joel Embiid. Well, yeah. During the actual process, the process of the process, TJ McConnell probably is that crown jewel in terms of a guy that played in the process era, was here for a little bit after, and then turned himself into, your legitimate guy off the bench to keep an offense moving. Like when I think about even like Isaiah Joe's great, outside shooting's great. I think about other candidates. TJ McConnell, from pure process to moving on in his career, probably is, again, not including Joel Embiid, a guy that actually played during losing seasons here. TJ McConnell is probably that guy.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He's the epitome of the process because when we think of the process, it was all about, yes, of course, acquiring top draft picks, but it was all about finding a diamond in the rough, developing that person, and turning them into a usable NBA piece, right? And when you look at TJ McConnell, that's exactly what he was. I mean, this guy was, undrafted out of Arizona. When he showed up to training camp, it was hilarious. When he shows up to training camp, he was the 5th string point guard. He didn't even have a locker. Yo, you would go in the locker room and they had 2 chairs, and right next to those chairs was 2 big duffel bags, right? And that, seriously. So he would like sit down and he would reach in his duffel bag and pull out a shirt, pull out a jersey, pull out all types of stuff. And then he would put his pants and shorts and stuff. He would fold them up and put them in a duffel bag and close it like that. It was crazy. He's pulling out deodorant, all types of stuff out of that bag. And then you look at him and you say to yourself, like, wow, there's only like 4 guys from that team his rookie year. Now, I'm including Joel, but I know that. But outside, there was only 4 guys from that team who were still in the NBA. And this guy, the 5th string point guard, is one of them. So, yes, TJ McConnell is the epitome of what the Sixers were trying to do and develop. And he's a success story in the NBA now.
Here's what I absolutely love about that. First off, I didn't know that. That's incredible. Like, at least give the guy a shoebox, at least give him a cabinet or something. I don't know. Here's what I love about that. Since 2015, when he debuted in the NBA, to right now, his attitude is exactly the same. Watching these NBA playoffs, watching him play for the Pacers over these years and all that stuff too, he's exactly the same guy. Nothing has changed. I mean, Keith, he even has the hair flick. He still does the hair flick, Yeah,
like, he's a great dude.
Hard-nosed player. He's you talk about the epitome of the process era and all that stuff. He's absolutely that. And it's the type of thing that you have, if I could take that heart and soul and put it in some of these other players, namely a couple from the process itself, you might be talking about a similar outcome to at least what OKC is talking about right now. Maybe what the Pacers fans are talking about right now, which is these Sixers in an NBA final. But I want to go back to Isaiah Joe because I grew up, many people, you grow up around the game of basketball, you play the game of basketball. I'm not college level or anything like that, but just things you would hear from your coaches over the years. And one thing that really sticks out in my mind is in baseball, there's always room on a team for a really good hitter, a really good pitcher. In basketball, there's always room for a guy to be a knockdown shooter. Isaiah Joe was barely given the opportunity. Landry Shamet was barely given the opportunity under Doc Rivers. Now, Isaiah Joe, will stay on topic there, but just there's 2 guys that ended up being shooters in the NBA that the Sixers had in their, forget about back pocket, they had right here. And they decided to move on from those guys. So Isaiah Joe, I've interviewed him. I've talked to him before. He's the type of guy that just, if there's such thing as a kind assassin, like he's just a quiet shooting assassin when he's out there on the court. And that's also his personality. So you go on the other side of the court there to OKC and away from the Pacers. Isaiah Joe just always kind of had that silent assassin, quiet assassin type of aura about him. And now he's putting it all together with OKC.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And the funny thing about the whole Isaiah Joe thing, as far as being a quiet assassin, and it's kind of like, you're right, in basketball, especially now, where fundamentals aren't really people's strong suits with Americans and shooting. Like, this is like the equivalent of having a left-handed pitcher, a shooter, right? It is.
Right.
Like, am I right?
Right.
It's kind of
like
every team needs one. And the thing is, the bad part about it is that Isaiah Joe was a guy who the Sixers identified before the draft, and sources told me that they were going to draft him in the 2nd round. And I wrote about it, everything, this and that. And then what happens is he's, like you said, he comes in, and I get it, and they're saying like his defense was a little bit shaky, but he was playing well. I remember that preseason that he got waived. Doc threw him in a couple games. This guy was shooting close to 50% from 3. And then all of a sudden, he started getting all these DMPs and wasn't practicing. And it was kind of like, yo, is it one of those things where your mind is already made up, so you don't want him to play because if he continues to shoot from 50% from the field, you would look foolish for waiving him? And he waived him, and it was just a joke. Like, I never fully understood that move at all. Like, and the crazy part about it is he kept saying, well, he's not better than Dario. He's not better than Dario. And it's like, dude, do you see Isaiah Joe's upside? Like, you know what I mean? So that was a major blunder that the Sixers made, man. Like, I still like think of it and just like cringe on what a bad move it was. I mean, dude, there's just no other way of describing it. Shooting close to 50% and then you bench him? It was just mind-boggling to me.
Before we take our first break, I want to ask you. Actually, I'm going to ask you this when we come back. So when we come back, I want to get into our finals predictions, talk about the finals themselves. But I want to give you a second here just to think about this. If you could take one former Sixers or Sixer-related person, even from Michael Preston to Isaiah Joe to TJ McConnell, you could take any of those guys, put them back with the Sixers organization. Who would it be? Now, I'm going to go ahead and guess it's going to be a player. Or maybe it's a front office, but we'll talk about that when we come back. Also get into our finals predictions as well as the NBA finals kick off tonight. This is Locked On 76ers podcast. Back after this. And right now I want to tell you about the great people at FanDuel, where you can take advantage of all they have to offer. Like right now, new customers to FanDuel can get $200 in bonus bets if their first $5 bet wins. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live during the game with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and, more importantly, win big. Right now, Game 1, I'm taking the Thunder to win by more than 10, announce their presence by authority. Thunder are 9.5-point favorites, so I got them covering tonight on FanDuel. As far as the NBA Finals MVP goes, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now going off at minus 550 for SGA. Tyrese Halliburton going off at plus 700. And how about plus 2,000 on Pascal Siakam? So take advantage of all they're offering right now on FanDuel. And once again, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if their first $5 bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Keith Pompey, who are you taking from this NBA Finals that has a Sixers connection and putting back on the Sixers? And I'll even do this for you. I'll even go this way. If you could get in your time machine, if you could get in your DeLorean, I know you have one. If you get a DeLorean and go back and reverse it. Yeah, right. This guy, do you really wish you had a DeLorean or maybe the
you know why? Because I would have so much money that I would be able to waste it on a DeLorean. You know what I mean? Because like if you have a DeLorean, then you have another car too, right? You're not driving that every day, right? So it's like, hey, I think I'll just get a DeLorean. It's like a guy saying, I want a pair of Jordans. Like, let me just go get a pair of Jordans. You know what I mean? Because you have other sneakers, but you just want to wear the Jordans to fit and go with your fit. So yeah, I wish I had that.
All right, there you go. Yeah. If you have a DeLorean, you got to have a backup. If you could go back in time and say, hey, you know what? Maybe this guy never leaves. So you could either take them now, put them on the Sixers, or you could say they never leave. Who would it be?
Let's go back all together. If there was one guy who connected to the finals, I think I would go with Vince Rodman too. And the reason why I'm saying that is because people forget stuff. People forget. Now, when Daryl Morey was hired, when Daryl Morey was hired, he got a lot of credit for that draft when they got Maxey, Isaiah Joe, and Paul Reed, and also when they traded Al Horford and all this other stuff. But people forget Morey was only on the job for less than a month, right? So granted, he had to he signed off on things, but he had to basically like have somebody else lead. Vince Rodman was the person leading that draft. Vince Rodman was the one doing all the press conferences, doing everything, right? So the fact that he was a guy that as soon as like his tenure was over with, OKC snatched him up quick, fast, in a hurry and he gets Isaiah Joe, and he's been around for a while, I look at him as a person that the 76ers could have kept his basketball mind and his ability. Like, he's been in the league for 18 years. He's a young guy from Ohio. When he first came to the 76ers, he was kind of like Tony DeLeo's intern. And Tony DeLeo took him under his wing. Yeah, so he's been here for a while, really, and a really nice guy. So, I think that, a lot of times assistant general managers and whatever, their titles are, unless the team is messing up, we really don't talk about them. But the fact that he was in on and leading the show with that Maxey, Isaiah Joe, Paul Reed, and all the things they did, I got to give him credit. I have to give him credit. And I would think that he would be a guy that they would bring back. I mean, a guy that you would like to see back because of his basketball mind. Now, again, Daryl Morey gets the credit. Elton Brand gets the credit, right? But this is a guy who was, integral in what they were doing behind the scenes.
If you could get into your DeLorean and go back, this is the move you'd make to reset. It's interesting you mentioned that, because I remember some years ago when Elton Brand just took over as the GM of the 76ers before he even traded for Jimmy Butler that year and started really trying to cash in the chips of the process and all that. I remember talking to him about the role he was in before he was the GM, and I remember asking him, people talk about your inexperience as an executive. What could you say to them to make them feel better? And he went down the avenue that you just did. Like, I know I'm Elton Brand, but as far as the executive role I've had, I've been an under the radar guy. If you like how this team is starting to come together, I've got a lot of fingerprints on that. But you'd never know that because things are headlined. Well, first, other headlines about the Colangelos, other headlines, of course, with Sam Hinkie. So you would never know it. So those guys that are working quite literally behind the scenes are the guys that really don't get that credit, as guys that are doing a lot of the legwork to understand the players like Tyrese Maxey that you would be drafting.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that Elton is really good at is relationships. You know what I mean? Elton's a nice guy. Like, it's hard to I don't know too many people that would say anything like mean about him. Like it was weird. Like when because here's the thing, when you meet certain athletes, right, former athletes, when your first time when you come in contact with them, there's always like a got you moment. Like got you is, oh, this guy isn't like who I thought he would be. Like either he's a really nice guy, or he could be arrogant and could be like a guy that you don't like, right? Well, Elton is one of those dudes where it's like, dang, I didn't know he was that nice. Like he's extremely down to earth. Now, the one thing that I will say, now Vince, gets the credit too and all that, and Elton gets credit, but Elton has a really good relationship with Rich Paul and other agents. Like he builds it. So, one of those things where like he was like, hey, look, we got Maxey. So he was selling it too. But, I think that Vince was the guy who was, very integral in it. But, yeah, Elton is a guy that, like you say, you don't think about it. Like, Matisse Thybulle, when they drafted him, Elton had a great relationship with his agents and this and that and things like that. So, yeah, Elton is a good guy, but he did a lot of things behind the scenes. Here's the fact. People forget this. Elton, before he came to the Sixers, he turned down a front office job with the Atlanta Hawks because when he was a player, they loved his relationships with people and this and that. And Mike Budenholzer, he really wanted to hire Elton, and Elton didn't want to do it at that particular time. And then he came to the Sixers.
Elton Brand, when he signed that Philly Max deal as a player, gave one of my favorite quotes. Gave one of my favorite quotes in the history of sports athletes in Philadelphia. And that's when he got asked about, Philly fans can be tough. They booed Santa Claus. And his response, if you remember, of course he got booed. He showed up in front of 60,000 people and didn't bring no presents. Like I love that line from Elton Brand. All right. Finals predictions. Yeah. Finals predictions. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
You can go first.
Is it chalk? It might even be. I think Oklahoma City wins this in 6. I think you got the best player on the floor in SGA. You have a team that can basically do everything. You have an extreme diversity in terms of scoring. I just think they're too hot with the best player, literally an MVP in SGA. I like the Pacers a lot, but I think it's a 6-game series, and I think it's the Thunder.
Yeah, you know what? It's like I don't want to disagree with you at all. I mean, because I do think that 6 games does sound about right. Just because I think it's going to be a closer series than what people expect. You know, I'm hearing everyone saying it's going to be a sweep. It's going to be a gentleman's sweep. The Pacers, they don't deserve to be on the floor with them. But I do believe that OKC is going to win it. But I'm hoping for 7 games because after the basketball playoffs, it's like I get bored, right? I get bored. But at the same time, I do think that it's going to be 6 games, and I do think it's going to be OKC. I really do. I think that, you know, the person who's going to be the difference in the game in this series is going to be Jalen Williams. I really do. Like I know Shai's the MVP, and I know all that, but I feel like that Jalen Williams, who is the all-star, 3rd-team All-NBA guy, has been the one who's been stepping up a lot and adding a lot of different wrinkles to it. And I just feel like he's a guy that has a chip on his shoulder, and he's a good player, better than what people think. And I think that he's going to be the difference in this series. But I do think it's going to go. It's not going to be as easy as everyone thinks, and I think it's going to go 6 games.
Yeah, plus, I mean, you're talking about best player on the floor and all that stuff. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton has just found another level. That level that you talk about with regular season guys in the postseason, you hope that he hits that level. You know, you hope your player hits that level. Tyrese Halliburton, has absolutely hit that level for the Pacers. So that's why I think 6 games as well.
Yeah, I mean, Halliburton, he has. And then, you know, the thing is, when you look at it, you know, the problem that I have with this team is guys getting in foul trouble, right? Miles Turner is an elite rim protector. He can step out and hit the 3. But there are times when he gets in foul trouble, and then, you know, they have Thomas Bryant. But the one guy that I like, Tony, who used to play for the Sixers, their 3rd-string point guard, Tony Bradley, right? I'm going to say Tony Bradley. The thing is, I love him. He was great for the Sixers. He's a good player. But typically when he plays is because somebody is struggling or somebody is in foul trouble. And I feel like if you do that against those, if you get in foul troubles against those 2 7-footers that they have in OKC, I think you're going to get in trouble. You're really going to be in trouble. So that's the key, man. That's the key. You can't get in foul trouble. And they do, I hate to say it, but, you know, SGA, people call them the foul merchant. And so what that means is people are going to get in foul trouble. So they got to be careful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We know all about that in Philadelphia. Joel Embiid has certainly done a hell of a job of doing that as well. When we come back, all right, so we both got the 76ers, or excuse me, the 7, I wish. We both got the Oklahoma City Thunder winning the NBA Finals in 6 games. When we come back, the Oklahoma City Thunder pretty much did everything right during their brief process, even if you want to call it that. But is there a quick fix to get the Sixers on track like OKC? We'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On 76ers podcast. It didn't take much, Keith, for the Oklahoma City Thunder to be able to get to the NBA Finals. When you think about it, they didn't have a 10-win season. They didn't have a 17-win, 18, 19-win season. I think they were like, 22 and 22 win seasons? That's their 24 and 22, I think, is what they were able to put together. And next thing you know, they're able to trade Paul George. They're able to get great players. They hit on their picks, unlike the 76ers. Is there any quick fix, Keith, to the 76ers getting to the conference finals, NBA finals? Is there any quick fix to what the Sixers are in right now?
You know, the quickest fix that they have, and I don't know, is going to be over time. But it's going to be hard for them to do it. But the quickest fix is getting rid of Joel Embiid and Paul George. I mean, I hate to say it, but if there was a team, like, let's just say if you could swap them out or one of them out for, like, Giannis or someone of that caliber, then yeah, you say, okay, well, you got Maxey, you got Giannis, you got a couple other guys. Okay, I can see this team competing. But it's hard to do that because of the guys having their injury histories, and I don't know if Milwaukee would want to take that on, right? But if they did that, if they were able to trade for Giannis for one of those guys, yeah, I think that they would be a contender. I really do. I think that they would be a contender. But it's just, it's hard because, I think that wherever, like if you trade Embiid to Milwaukee, the next thing you know, Milwaukee's saying, well, we don't want him. We're going to be in the same situation that you guys are in now. Why should we take him?
See, I always, and I've talked about this before plenty of times, just never with you, I don't think, do the hardcore Hinkyites realize that Hinkie would have traded Joel Embiid like 3 years ago? Do they realize that? That he would have pulled the trigger on that deal to start the next process? I look at Joel Embiid right now. I just think he's untradeable. He has to show that he can be somewhat healthy in order to move on. So, okay, you talk about quick fixes then. If I'm any other organization and you want to talk to me about taking Joel Embiid, you want to talk to me about taking Paul George, I ain't taking him without that number 3 overall pick.
Oh, yeah.
So do you think it would take that? And I know you've said before that Giannis would certainly be a guy that you'd entertain that kind of trade for. But do you agree that you have to attach the 3rd overall pick if you're going to move on from either one of those contracts?
Yeah, definitely. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to. And the only thing is like we're talking about a quick fix.
Right.
It's kind of like, with that 3rd overall pick, is he can make a contribution right now that's going to make you come out of the East? Mm-hmm. But then you ask yourself, now for next season, would Giannis help you come out of the East? So mm-hmm. that that's the thing that you have to consider. And I think possibly yes. You know what I mean? I do. I think possibly yes. And because typically, when you have a team and players, you sign a superstar player and players think that they can win a championship, sometimes they factor that in on where they want to go in free agency. Absolutely. Now, it might be a legitimate guy who's already made a boatload of money, and they may say, you know what? The Sixers have a chance. Like, we don't know who's going to be the coach of the Knicks. Boston right now, you look at, look at Jason Tatum being injured. I don't know what they're doing over in Cleveland. Maybe I'll come to the 76ers, sign a 1-year, a veteran minimum, and try to get myself a ring so I can ride off in the sunset as a champion. So things like that tend to happen when you lure, franchise altering players in your organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do want to address that. The quickest possible fix, I think, is unfortunately a fantasy, which is magical powers to make guys healthy. And then all of a sudden, and then you still keep the 3rd pick, and then you could compete now with this magical pixie dust called health. And then you compete for the future as well with Ace Bailey and Tyrese Maxey, and things all of a sudden are looking up, Keith. Look at me being optimistic.
Yeah, you are. You are being extremely optimistic.
Hey,
I mean,
I'm never optimistic. I'm never negative. I'm always real.
I guess and
being real means
like
to acknowledge that'd be luck.
That's why I like you. You keep it real. You keep it 100.
Always, man. Always. Hey, I don't know about you, but one last thing on the finals. For a non-Sixers final, and obviously it's been since 25 years since we could talk about that. Yeah, 24 actually. I am really excited. I feel like this is fresh blood for the NBA. Like, I'm really excited to watch Game 1 tonight.
Yeah, me too. And it's funny though, because typically you're not supposed to be, right? 2 small market teams, 2 teams who play a different style of play that we're used to in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
But I'm excited because I think that right now this kind of signals the changing of the guard. As much as everyone keeps saying Halliburton isn't like a superstar, he isn't this, he isn't that. Well, there comes a time when people have that moment that elevates them, right? And they do things like that. And I just feel like, right now, the way that both of these teams are playing without 3 max players and they're able to win, they're not in luxury tax. But at the same time, I think that, this playoffs, we saw the emergence of, Anthony Edwards taking a step forward. SGA, Jalen Williams taking a step forward. Tyrese Halliburton and the slew of role players that they have that will start on just about any other team. So to me, I am excited about that. But, sometimes I was also thinking I was excited because, as I tell you, I get bored, man, after the NBA finals. At least in the past I did. And I was like, oh, can you play 19 games instead of 7? So, but yeah, it should be fun to watch. It should be fun.
All right. So other than draft coverage, which Keith Pompey, are you a gardener? Are you a long distance runner? Are you a gamer? You play video games? What's Keith Pompey doing after the finals?
You do go to summer league and stuff like that, but I'm talking about as far as like TV watching. But what I do is, it's a lot of it's a lot of gardening. Well, not really gardening. Let's say cutting the grass. Well, I guess you consider that cutting
landscaping.
The grass. Landscaping. Doing things around the house, But also when it comes down to TV, so I'm a binge watcher of Naked and Afraid. Don't ask me why, but I do. I watch it. Like, yo, are you guys crazy for going out there? Talking about it. You know what I mean? So, but it's gotten boring now because before they used to have a lot of people who would quit, and now they show episodes of people who stay for the 21 days or the 14 days. So it's kind of boring. I used to like it when people would go out there for 3 days, like, I'm done. I can't do this, and leave.
I like shows like that. I like that show Alone, where they just drop the survivalists out there in the wilderness, and they got to survive as long as possible. There's no limit. I like that, but they have clothes on. I guess that's the only negative part of it. Keith Pompey. Hey, everyone check out Inquirer.com. Keith Pompey's article on the connections with the Sixers and this NBA Finals. Make sure you guys check that out. Make sure you guys are following Keith Pompey on all social media platforms and all that stuff. And while he's landscaping, while he's watching Naked and Afraid, maybe tweet him or post your favorite episode so we can go back and watch it. I don't know.
Yeah, do that so I can go back.
Keith, always great catching up. Look forward to talking about the Game 1 of the NBA Finals tonight as that tips off. Look forward to talking about that with you tomorrow as we conclude tomorrow our first full week of working together here for Locked On 76ers. In case people missed it, Kayla Santiago had got a big promotion at her day job, I guess you could call it that. Kayla's a friend of mine. Very happy for her. So it's me and Keith right now for Locked On 76ers podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Make sure you guys hit like and subscribe on Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. We'll see you guys tomorrow.